Yay. Okay, I'm so happy to be back. Day 2 of this free training, all about, all of the things that might hold us back in relationships. And so today I'm so happy to be with you all to share for the first time teaching about the type C personality, why it's correlated with cancer. And I know this topic seems heavy, so right off the bat, I just want to thank everybody for coming. If you're able to make it today, even if you're watching the replay, thank you for being here. This is a topic that's very, very close to my heart. And I lost my mom to cancer in 2020. And when I discovered about the type C personality, I got chills. And it was through Gabor Mate's book, When the Body Says No. And so I'm going to share with you what the type C personality is today, in addition to really spinning it in a positive way of what can we actually learn from this? What can we take away? Why is reclaiming healthy anger to our benefit, right? In a variety of different ways, not just psychologically, but also physically. And so I'm going to go ahead and share today's slides. And I think this class will probably be a little bit shorter than yesterday's. We'll go for about, maybe 30 minutes today. And I would love to hear in the chat if you have a moment to just say hi so I can see who's here and also where you are from. Many people from my community have been jumping on. So I know where all of you are located, but if you're new, I would love to hear your name, where you're from, as much as you're comfortable sharing here. And then when I have my slides pulled up, it's hard for me to see the chat. I have to flick to another tab. So I highly encourage you to continue to ask questions in the chat, and then also type, what resonates, any comments you have. And then when I'm finished presenting, I'll go back and look at the chat and answer questions. And I'll also stay, like I do typically, at the end for a little bit to answer questions that you have. Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and we're going to get into it. Okay, so this title today, I changed it a little bit. And so we're going to call it The Personality Pattern Linked to Cancer. Once again, welcome everybody. And I promise you, this is going to be something that we're not going to stay on the heaviness today. We're going to actually get into how we can work with all of this to actually to help not only raise the levels of consciousness, but also to be able to take this information and to put it to use of like, what can we do with this if we know some of this is true? And so today's overview, I'm going to share about type C personality. As I shared with you before, it's a psychological pattern that is correlated with cancer. And again, I discovered this after my mom passed away in 2020. I was absolutely blown away by how accurately this personality type described her. And then I wrote an article on Substack, which I've linked in the description of the video if you want to read that. That's a really good article. And it not just outlined some of the information I'm going to share with you today about this personality type, but it also shares my mom's story. And so I received a lot of messages from people who, after they read that article, they reached out to me and shared that they had also lost loved ones to cancer, and that those people also had the similar personality type here. And so there was a lot of really good comments on that Substack article, in addition to messages, private messages that people sent me. And so, that this is one of the more tender topics for me, but it's very heartfelt. And before I jumped on today, my mom is very present in my work. And so, thank you, Mom. Thank you. Thank you. And so today we're going to look at what these correlations are, speak about the importance of healthy anger, and also talk about all of the incredible benefits. This is what I want to focus on today, of working with anger in a healthier way. And so the type C personality, this is just an excerpt from Gabor Mate's book. It's an excellent book, by the way, and it's not just about cancer. He really covers in that book all of the psychological correlations between some types of aspects of our personality and different illnesses. And so I really highly recommend When the Body Says No by Gabor Mate. It's really, really excellent. So in that book, in chapter 9, which is all about, the chapter is called Is There a Cancer Personality? I'm just going to read it and then we'll kind of go through it a little bit slower. But he says it was in relation to melanoma, which is skin cancer, which was the type that my mom had, that the notion of a type C personality was first proposed, a combination of character traits more likely to be found in those who develop cancer than in people who remain free of it. And so, obviously right off the bat, correlation is obviously not causation, but the correlation is pretty darn strong here. In addition to, so many people that I shared with you just a minute ago reached out to me and confirmed this. And so if there is a correlation, we might as well pay attention to it and dig into it. And so it's really interesting, these 3 types, type A, type B, and type C personalities. So I just wanted to spend a moment on this. So they found when they were looking at the character traits of these people that type A individuals, they classify as angry, tense, fast, aggressive, controlling. And these people are more prone to heart disease, which is really, really interesting. And so while today we're going to focus on type C personalities, which I'll get to in a moment, it's really interesting because the people that don't have a healthy relationship with anger do fall on these 2 ends of the spectrum. They're either on the more passive side, which we'll talk about today with type C, or they're on the more aggressive side, which is type A individuals. And so it's really interesting. I'll share in a moment also the correspondence to masculine and feminine energies. Type B personalities are kind of the healthy middle. They represent the balanced, moderate human being who can feel and express emotions without losing themselves in uncontrolled emotional outbreaks. So these people have a healthy, mature relationship with their emotions. Type C personalities have been described as extremely cooperative, patient, passive, lacking assertiveness, and accepting. And we're going to dive a little bit deeper now as well. So he says in that book, the type C person might resemble type B since both may appear easygoing and pleasant on the surface. But the type B personality easily expresses anger, fear, sadness, and other emotions. They just do it in a healthy way. Whereas the type C person represses or suppresses negative emotions, particularly anger, which is really, really interesting, while struggling to maintain a strong and happy facade. And so repression, niceness, and lack of aggression are lifelong patterns having their origins in early childhood. And so, I'm not going to get into this deeply today, but of course, all of this, our personality is not actually our true self. It's really just how we developed. It's the development of the ego and how we sort of appear and show up in the world. And so much of the type C personality, of course, was shaped and molded from our experiences and from childhood. So I think we might just for a minute or two touch on some of how we can trace this back to childhood. But I just wanted to spend a little bit more time painting the picture of the present day patterning that many people in my community can relate to, because a lot of people who come to me actually kind of fit this, to be honest with you. And I was running the type C personality for much of my life because I learned it. I learned it from the women in my family, the mother line, and then the women on my father's side as well. All were more on the passive side of things. And so in that book, he also shares the type C personality traits associated with melanoma have been found in studies of many other cancers as well. So they started to find that it wasn't just skin cancer. It was other cancers as well. But it's really interesting to think about skin cancer, skin being the boundary of the body. And and my mom ended up having a very aggressive and more rare form of skin cancer. And so just to wrap up, kind of painting the picture of this type C personality, Cancer patients are more likely to demonstrate the following traits: elements of denial and repression of anger and other negative emotions, the external appearance of a nice or good person, a suppression of reactions which might offend others, and the avoidance of conflict, right? And so the sort of modern day trendy way of explaining this is the people pleaser, right? This could be the good girl or the nice guy kind of, patterning. Um, and we'll just wrap up this excerpt from the book. But he says repression, the ability to say no, and a lack of awareness of one's anger make it much more likely that a person will find herself or himself in situations where emotions are unexpressed, needs are ignored, and gentleness is exploited. And so these are the page numbers if you want to go back to that book. And that whole chapter, I wasn't able to share all of it, but it's just excellent. I can't recommend it highly enough. And so, for me, after reading that, I had been practicing as a psychologist for years already when I stumbled upon this information. And for me, it's just wild that so many people die of cancer on average every year. It's 10 million people. And if the correlation psychologically is this pronounced, then I don't really understand why, if someone receives a cancer diagnosis, that the doctors aren't screening for this type of patterning and recommending therapeutic support. I mean, I really just don't understand. Like, that wasn't a part of any of my mom's recommendations. And really nobody that I know that has a family member or has received a cancer diagnosis themselves mentions any sort of knowledge of this, right? So maybe some people do, and I'm just hoping and praying that things might start to shift. And I'm also not saying that this is the end all be all, that if you therapeutically treat this sort of psychological patterning, everything's going to be good. But I certainly believe that it can help quite a bit. And so for me, the fact that the physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual levels for all of us are all connected and informing each other, this is really a holistic approach, right? Of like what impacts us. These things are not these separate, domains from each other. We really, this is not new. And yet it's just mind blowing that we're not actually taking this information and applying it in a more concrete and practical way. Because it's really true. I mean, we're in 2026 right now. There's so many things. I thought by the year 2000, we would have flying cars already and all of this stuff. And so sometimes, it's like wild with some of the technology right now, but I'm like, wow, we're kind of like missing the boat on some of these things that are just really, for me, it's just a no-brainer, and so I'm not going to say that there's no progress that's being made, but I do think that the more that we can understand and talk about these things, and ultimately really taking responsibility ourselves for understanding truly holistic health is a form of empowerment. And in this day and age, so many people that I know have had to accept that we have to take our health and our health well-being into our own hands. And so, again, to spin it in a positive way, I'm hoping that this information can help and we can spread it around, and that people can start to get on board with this. And so we're going to move into healthy anger right now, because if this is one of the keys of the type C personality, and by the way, they did mention in the book that it's not just repressed anger, but they did consistently highlight the anger in particular out of all of the repressed emotions is actually very, very problematic. And so that's why we're going to really spend time today talking about this. And by the way, there's a whole week-long teaching. There's a whole bunch of information in Alchemy of the Heart. We specifically talk about healthy anger and why it's so important. This is just a little tidbit here for you. And this whole presentation today is just kind of an introduction. But I really, I take you pretty deep in Alchemy of the Heart. And so again, we're starting Monday. I'll remind you again at the end, but there's so much to work with here on a practical level. And so many of us were taught that anger is a bad thing, right? Many of us, not everybody, but many people we learned that anger is a bad thing and we shouldn't show it, right? We shouldn't express anger. Anger is bad. And if we weren't explicitly taught that, by our parents or by our teachers or whoever it was that were influencing us, or religion, et cetera, is another big one, then sometimes for those of us that actually have seen really unhealthy anger on the aggressive or the abusive side, if we were victims of that kind of anger, or if that was around us, then sometimes we also can go to the other extreme where we completely cut ourselves off from feeling even healthy anger. So let's just kind of talk about why anger, anger is not, anger is an emotion just like all of the other emotions that is here for a reason. And it has a form of intelligence, but there's a higher and lower expression of anger. And so I just want to start by teaching you the difference between healthy anger and toxic anger, right? Toxic anger is kind of the anger that we're all familiar with. It's the aggressive, the abusive, the harmful behavior, right? Physical violence, emotional violence, verbal harm to other people. I mean, we all really are pretty well aware of how anger can get out of control and very damaging. And so that's not the anger that I help my clients to actually reclaim, right? We're talking about healthy anger. So anger is a natural, healthy human emotion that we all feel, honestly. You might not think that you feel it, because I do get some people who are like, I just never get angry, right? And that's when the anger has been so repressed that we're absolutely so cut off from even feeling it. And we believe that we don't have it. But these things actually are very natural and they're healthy. And the anger in its, the clean anger in its healthiest form arises when a boundary has been violated, an injustice has occurred, or when we've been harmed or we see other people harmed. Anger is actually meant to kind of come up for a reason, because it allows us to protect ourselves, become more assertive, to stand up and say no, right? If you think about the energy of anger coming up, we want to be able to channel it into healthy boundaries, being able to stand up straight and say, no, that's not okay, sometimes forcefully. It's not about, going into a rage, right? We want to be able to think about the type B personality, that healthy middle. It's not about flipping out, but it's also not about shutting it down either, right? We have to learn how to work with it in a very healthy, mature way. And so healthy anger mobilizes us into action and assertiveness. It helps us to actually change a situation that's not okay, or to advocate for other people. And in its highest form, it is a catalyst for change. And even for leaving a situation, if need be, it provides energy, right, and mobilization for us. And so David Rico, in his book, How to Be an Adult, he says, anger is a natural human feeling that everyone experiences often, that needs to be expressed to maintain psychological health. And also through this presentation today, I would say also physical health as well. And so psychological support in general for how we deal with the type C personality, we want to be able to really target healthy anger and reclaiming that, and so that's a big piece of it. But we also don't want to skip emotional repression in general, or people pleasing tendencies in general. And so this slide here really is what I've seen when people who come to me who have the type C personality. I do take a broader, we don't just focus on anger. So this is a little bit of a broader approach. Ultimately, we have to get to the heart and the soul of it, which is really being able to heal our self-love and self-worth. Because often when I teach about boundaries, boundaries are something that you can learn, but if you actually don't love yourself and if you don't believe that you're worthy of having boundaries in the first place, you're not going to get very far. So we have to get to the heart of what is really going on here, and honestly, I would say that embracing healthy anger is actually part of developing healthy self-love and self-worth, because you do deserve to be treated well. You do deserve to be respected. You do deserve to be treated with love and care, and you don't deserve to be harmed, right? And so these things really all fit together. I also do really help people to face and alchemize the tougher emotions, right? Including trauma. But that's why in Alchemy of the Heart, we actually go through, the quote unquote tougher emotions that most humans like to avoid. So we cover fear, anger, shame, and sadness. These are sort of Hawkins describes it as the lower levels of consciousness, right? They vibrate at a lower frequency. And so a lot of times people who maybe are spiritually heightened, they don't want to go there. They don't want to go and face the shadow or the tough stuff. And so that's classic bypassing. But what I've seen is that unfortunately we can't avoid these things because they're there. And so even from an energetic perspective, if these things come up and we repress them, they're not deleted, right? They're not deleted from our psyche. They're not deleted from our subconscious. They're not deleted from our energy field. And so we do need to be able to face them. And the benefits, which we're going to move into soon, is that it can free up so much goodness in life. So I don't want to just focus on like facing the hard stuff and slogging through things that aren't really fun. I also want to focus on like why, right? The benefits of this. Of course, I say this quite a bit, but in 95% of my clients, we work on healthy boundaries, assertive communication. Those two things go hand in hand. By the way, if you're new to YouTube, please look at the videos that I have posted in addition to the live section, because I've taught some free classes on these things. And also, if you go to my website and you click on free gifts, you can get free classes as well. So I have a lot of free content that really kind of aligns with all of this, right? Because so many people who come to me struggle with the same patterns. And so I teach a lot on these topics. And then, of course, practicing relationships more consciously is a little bit of like, I would say, an advanced skill beyond this, but it is really it's woven into my work. And actually, this is the heart of my work: is how can we actually learn that relationships are here for us to be able to stir up all of our stuff in just the way that we need them to. Not to drive us crazy, but just to show us our blind spots, to show us what needs love and care and attention, to show us where we can grow, right? I also have healing the relationship between men and women here. And so this might seem interesting to put it here, but it's really, it's here for a reason. And so back here, let me just flip back for a second. When you look at the type A, B, and C, type A is really like a shadow masculine. Type C is shadow feminine. And so when we can do our work as men and women, and also knowing that we all have both inside of us, to really move from the more, you could say, unskilled expressions of masculine and feminine energies into the higher form, then healing will occur. And so that's actually part of it, right? When we actually move from the more passive style of a personality, a more passive style of showing up in relationships, we are doing the healing. And that will actually be part of healing the relationship between men and women. And by the way, if you don't know me, this is like a central theme of my mission and my work. And so earlier this year, I taught a 3.5-hour class of this exact title. If you're in my community, many of you have seen that already. And my partner and I are teaching and running groups on this theme as well, because it's really deep. And so if you want to purchase that class from my website, you can. It's very low cost, and it's packed with information. I also have transmuting the drama triangle on this too, because the drama triangle, we talked yesterday a little bit in the class about the drama triangle, but that just represents a codependent way of relating with each other that is really, it's not helping anybody. And so all of these things sort of link together. And then ultimately, learning what true power is and overcoming the control game, which I speak quite a bit about in my work, because we are moving, humanity and in terms of relationships is really moving away from the power over dynamic, right? Where one person is on top and the other person is lower than. That's not actually a higher form of relating. So we're learning what true power is, which is not power over, it's power with, for us to be able to learn our true power, right? And to understand that, gets into the spiritual realms of how we are all, these divine expressions, right? And we need to come back to self-love and really remember who we are, and to know that nobody is more special than anybody else. We're all special in our own way. Okay, so when I also work with people who have the type C personality, I also weave in energetic support as well. And so I don't just stay on the psychological level with the work I do with clients. And so I teach breath work. And so for me, breath work is very energetic, as well as somatic, as well as emotional, and all of these other things. But, the style of breath work that I do with people, it's a longer form style. It's done lying down, and the breath is done all through the mouth. I have videos actually that I just posted on YouTube. If you're new, if you want to learn how to do the technique, I provide a lot of free information. And yeah, so I'm not going to get super deep into it, but this style of breath work I do both personally and with my clients, one-on-one and in groups, it's really meant to be a key tool when it comes to energetic hygiene. So what I mean by that is that stuff that is stuck or repressed in the body, right? Not just emotionally repressed. And today we're focusing on anger, but really all the emotions. It does tend to get stuck in our body, right? And so you've probably heard that our issues are in our tissues. There's a lot of focus on somatic work and healing, which is absolutely true. But it doesn't just get stuck in our tissues in our physical body. It gets stuck in our shadow, right? In our psyche, and I believe also in our energetic field. All of these things, again, are tied together: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. And so for me, breath work is really key. And the energy side of things in my own personal healing was the missing piece to everything. And so that's how I work with clients. I don't skip this step. Breath work can really help us to really cleanse and clear our energy. It can be incredibly beneficial for emotional release. And so, if you have trouble getting in touch with your heart, if you don't feel connected here, the type of breath work that I do, it's really meant to open your heart so that you can actually see what is going on and you can have more access to it. But even for someone like me, who's a very open-hearted, loving, heart-centered person, breath work really, it takes me deeper. And the emotional releases that happen during this style of breath work are so healing. I can't even tell you, this is like the words that I have on here really don't do the experience justice of the breath work, right? You have to experience it. But the emotional releases that I've had during breath work and my clients have had, like, no amount of talk therapy is going to get you there, right? Like sometimes in therapy, which I don't speak badly about. I did therapy for years and it was incredibly beneficial. Definitely part of my journey. But, sometimes in therapy, when you start crying or you have some tears, it's so different from the emotional release that can be so cathartic and so clearing that you have during breath work. And so, especially for something like stuck anger or sadness or things that we didn't want to feel in the moment, it just gives us a chance to get that up and out. And so, I really do believe that we can't keep this stuff stuck in our body, and so I hope that after today, one of the reasons why I want to focus on the fact that this can make us sick is because sometimes when I share with people, the psychological benefits of doing this kind of work and becoming more assertive and like having boundaries and increasing your self-love, people might understand like, oh, that sounds nice. But, we also have to understand that the stakes are high, actually, now that we know that this stuff really does have negative health impacts for anybody that has lost anybody in their life, right? Or you're currently seeing somebody that you love go through horrible health issues. We really do have to understand that these things, we have to learn about all of this so that we can work with these in a more productive way. Or of course, if you personally have gone through health challenges, it's pretty cool to see that more people are understanding that there's the psychological components, but we still have a long ways to go. So as I said, with the breath work, it helps to move stuck energy up and out. The spiritual development and connection from this style of breath work is really, really key. And honestly, for me, when I go beyond, think about what we covered today, like when I go beyond just the psychological benefits, the psychological actually starts to merge into the spiritual at the higher levels, which is pretty deep to get into, but there is a connection and a benefit. Because ultimately, it's about returning us back to the truth of our heart and our soul and operating from this place. And so people who have people pleasing, people who are more passive or who don't speak their truth, right? They're unfortunately, they're cut off from this. And so, life unfortunately tries to give us these nudges, and we have such compassion for where this stuff comes from. But there are real consequences when we actually don't listen to the truth of our heart and our soul. So to flip it in a positive way, once we do start to open our heart and listen to our truth and our inner compass, this is what we call living in greater alignment. And life actually starts to work with you. Life is always trying to work with us, right? But we sometimes don't realize that. This style of breathwork also opens the intuition. It's profound. Other energetic practices that you can do to support like getting this stuff out of your body, out of your field. Sounding is something that I do quite regularly. It's really just about like using your inhales and using your exhales, I should say, to just like move the energy. And so a lot of times when I teach breathwork classes, we'll start out and we'll just take some clearing breaths, right? So just just the audible sighs, even without making louder noises or weirder noises, can be so like it is a way to actually start to move energy, right? Shaking is also, many people know about this, but you can actually shake your arms, your legs out, you can shake your whole body out. And if you probably just search YouTube, you can just look at like benefits of shaking, because that's also a way to move stuck or stagnant energy. And so for me, the last thing I'll just say is that, like, I really do believe that we're heading into a time where we have to just learn about our energy body and to learn how to do various forms of energy clearing as a regular practice, maybe even a daily practice. And for those of us that are more empathic, or maybe we work with clients or people, right, or we're helping a lot of people, we need to do this regularly so that we don't take on other people's stuff, more than we should. Okay, so what's on the other side of doing this work, the benefits of this work are like, I can't even tell you, right? This is something where I really just want to tell you all that, like, the fruits of our labor, as I often say, are absolutely profound, right? I am currently living a life that I never knew was possible. Is my life perfect? I don't even know what that means. No, there's still challenges, but I never, if I were to rewind 15 years ago, my mind is like absolutely blown at my life, my relationships, what I'm actually doing with my life right now, teaching. Like, I never imagined that I would ever be able to have a life like this. And the reason why I do, and you can too, is by doing this inner work. And so all of the stuff where we have to kind of go down and in, right? The shadow work, looking at stuff that we don't want to deal with, there is a direct tie between doing that and the heights that it unlocks on the other side. This is really the law of polarity. If you really study some of the esoteric sciences, the law of ascent and descent are linked together. And so every step forward that you take, every bit of healing that you do is going to unlock something that you just never thought was possible. And so, this is why we do this work. And if you've done any kind of healing work and you've noticed the benefits, right? It's like at some point, it doesn't feel like work anymore as much, right? It's like, oh my God, like I'm understanding the benefits now. I'm actually seeing that every minute that I spend here has a benefit, right? Like I could go on and on. But with this specific work, improved levels of confidence, assertiveness, and energy, certainly when we're working with healthy anger. But I would say also all of the tougher emotions, right? When we're able to do that alchemy, as I am obviously sort of obsessed with, and I do this with clients, even if you don't want to join us for Alchemy of the Heart, this is all the work I do. And it leads us to have relationships that are loving, respectful, and reciprocal, right? Versus when we are more passive, what happens most of the time, as most of us know, is that we become doormats. People end up walking all over us. People don't actually respect us. They take advantage of us, right? I often say when I teach about this that in a perfect world, it wouldn't be like that. People would respect us for having, warm, loving, compassionate hearts, but we just don't live in a world like that, right? And so, the flip side of it is that we are here to learn how to actually honor ourselves as much as we honor other people. And of course, really, it goes hand in hand with the development of clean, healthy boundaries and better communication all around. The bigger picture here is that we can start to work with our life in a more positive way. I often say that life is actually for us, right? Sometimes if we're stuck in victim mentality, we feel like life is against us. And that doesn't mean that bad things don't happen to us and that I don't have compassion for that. But life is actually always trying to support us, right? And it's going to give us the exact material, situation, people that we need to be able to evolve on a soul level. And so this is true empowerment when we can understand this kind of stuff. And also, of course, like when we start to go down this road, this is where the psychological and the spiritual start to come together, because we start to become more aligned, right? When we start to listen to the truth of our heart and our soul, we start to become more linked to our spiritual life, right? And we start to get more in alignment. You might notice certain synchronicities or just some positive momentum starting to happen in your life. Again, this is kind of a deep one, but I know some of you know exactly what I'm talking about. And then, of course, the world and everybody around you benefits when you reclaim your authentic self and gifts, right? This is just true, right? Everybody loses when we are actually, small or hiding ourselves, or we're not in touch with our gifts or why we're here, right? Nobody wins with that. Okay, so just a reminder, Monday we start Alchemy of the Heart, and this program is so deep, right? So everything we talked about today, we're going to dive deep into healthy anger. We're also going to talk about how to transmute fear into really incredible courage, which is really, really powerful. We're going to talk about, the gold in things like the dark night of the soul, sadness, and how to approach these tougher emotions without getting stuck in them. And we're going to look at the things that we have shame around and see if we can actually transform that into self-love, which those two things are linked together. In the program, we're going to generally practice being more assertive with healthier boundaries, cultivating true deep self-love by releasing our shame, as I just mentioned. Yesterday was all about, how sometimes our helping can enable people. And so we're going to really focus as well on how do we move towards a healthier, more empowering relationship with other people. And in general, the program is really about how do we actually alchemize the tough stuff of our life into pure blessing. So this is the path of soul evolution. and ultimately overcoming victim mentality, right? And to step into more personal responsibility. So 7 weeks together, we start on June 22nd. We close the beginning of August, and this will be a small intimate group. And so there's not unlimited spots. So if you're interested, I'm going to put a link in the description. And let me go over here and see that. Oh my God, there's so much here. Oh, thank you so much, you guys. I'm just catching up here. So Angela's here. Yay. So good to see you today. I loved Gabor Mate's book too. So much clicked when I read it. I can't tell you, that book was so mind-blowing. Like, that is a book that I've gone back to several times, and it's underlined and it's highlighted. And so, yeah, I really highly recommend that one to anybody. Oh, Sandra, I'm so happy you're here. Yay, it's so good to see you. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy to see you. Cosmic Furniture, I still don't know your name, but I'm so happy you're here. That's so cool. You've jumped on all the lives this week. Yeah, wonderful. Okay, she says, my husband has never been shown how to express healthy anger. His dad was famous for temper tantrums. Husband has South Node conjunct Moon in Leo, squares Mars in Scorpio. Oh boy, and Mars is opposite Saturn. Okay, I know. Yeah, and then there's like a sad face. I really, that's a tough one, but to always spin it in the positive, like, why is it there, right? What is he actually here to learn? How can he actually transmute this? And so, yeah, oh, thank you so much for sharing. Salome, so happy you're here. Thank you, thank you. Okay, issues in the tissues. Yes, heard a lot of women store unexpressed emotions in their yoni. Yeah, that is very true. The armoring that can occur there, as well as the hips for both men and women. I think the hips is also an area. And of course, like, gosh, the sacral in general is something where there's just a lot there. I feel unexpressed emotions are stored in all different parts of our field and body. Yeah, absolutely. It's really fascinating, to be honest with you, about all of this stuff. Like, I have a lot of Virgo. And so, like, I'm interested also in physical health. And I don't talk much about this, but I have since I was probably in my 20s. And I've had my whole own health journey, which I don't really share about publicly. But, thyroid is something where I definitely need to focus on. So it's really interesting, the stuff that gets stuck in all of these places, and they correspond to our chakra system and our energy body and all of this. Oh, that's so cool. My cats flick their paws. They're so in tune. I love that. Oh my gosh. So yeah, I do this a lot, right? And so, like, for those of us that are more energetically sensitive, just like kind of flicking the energy off. And so I do that a lot. As well as what I've been really into lately has been, I like to use the foam roller as well to kind of roll out the different parts of my body. And of course, I love massage, like a really good deep tissue massage, or even just regular massage. There's loads of different types of massages too. There was one of my clients in New Zealand. Oh, she's going to know that it's her, but she loves to get oh my gosh, what type of massage was she saying? It's like Rolfing, but it's like the fascia release as well. Like, she's had deep and profound experiences with that too. What else was I like to use the foam roller. That can be really good for somatic release. And when I do it, like, if you can really focus on your breathing and just like really imagining or feeling that, like, whatever is stuck is releasing as well. And then of course there's tons of energy stuff that we can do. I like to connect to the Mother Earth below and just give her whatever needs to be released so that she can alchemize. So there's so much that we can do. Okay, Angela asks about the massage. Oh, visceral. I don't know if it was, is that another way to describe fascia release or Rolfing? Like, I've never actually had these before, but I wish that I could find someone here in Los Angeles. But yeah, I mean, whatever you're doing to like really just like get in there. Okay. Oh, thank you all so much for coming. And I love seeing the chat as well. So does anyone have questions for me? You can also, like, if there's anything that you really resonate with, I'm really curious to know how many of you can really see yourself in the type C personality. I'm super curious. And I still have to watch that, excuse me, within myself as well, because this is basically describes all of the women on both sides, right, of my family. It's like this is it. Um, yeah, and my aunt currently, who's getting older, is struggling with quite a bit right now, and it's heartbreaking. But again, to just spin it in a positive way, if we can really understand how all of this is linked together, then we can use it, right, for healing of like, okay, what do I need to focus on? What do I need to focus on? Not just physically, but psychologically, spiritually. How do all these things tie together? Okay. Oh my gosh. So I don't know if there's any questions here, but I'll just wait one more moment and have some water. Yes, of course, you can ask a question. Okay. Oh, this is such a big topic. Okay. So the topic is the thing Tantra is wonderful, BDSM is not. Are you saying that that's what you believe? Or are you saying like that you've heard me speak about that before? That's such a big topic. Oh my gosh, it's good. It's a good one. I probably can't go super in depth here, but I did actually go quite in depth in the healing the relationship between men and women video. You can, and then also in the private community in the visionaries, I have a lot of my sexuality teachings in there, which I don't tend to put publicly. Although, yeah, there are actually a few videos here on YouTube that are free where I talk about sexuality. So what do I want to say about that? So it does kind of tie in today because we spoke about how the power over dynamic is fading away, right? Like that's not a form of relationship, right? Where one person has power over. And I do see that whether it's sexually or just the bigger thing of the dominator and submissive dynamic, that is it's a power over dynamic that then gets fetishized, if that's a word, and then turned into something that people get off on sexually. And then that is the energy that is generated from that just goes into the system so that it keeps going and going. Um, let's see. No, you said BDSM isn't good. Power play games equals bad. Yeah, I personally don't. And this is actually one of my people will disagree with me all day long. And so, yeah, reach out to me individually and we can talk more about it. And I can even send you a link to the class if you want to. It's a really long one about healing the relationship between men and women, but I like that would be a good one. It's a very big topic. So yeah, I'm so happy that you asked it though. And like, I'm really here for talking about it. So just reach out. Okay, so I think we're gonna start to wrap up, but yeah, would love to see you all in Alchemy of the Heart. There's a few spots open and we're gonna go really, really, really deep. It's a great group of people. I know everybody that's signed up and it's just gonna be another one of those amazing groups. And so, okay, lots of love, everybody. If there's any questions that come up later, just type them in the comments or in the chat and much, much love. And the last thing I'll just say, if this is beneficial for, to share with maybe any friends or family members that might benefit from this, I'm going to ask directly that you do that because in honor of my mom, this would be something that would really benefit a lot of people to understand this information. So much love, everybody. Have a great weekend coming up and I'll talk to y'all soon.